Welcome back to Mr. Midnight. Tonight we're talking about Alaska. Now most people think Alaska is just beautiful wilderness and adventure. But the people in tonight's stories, they learned there's something else out there. Something that doesn't want to be found. I've got 6 true stories for you. Stories from people who are just doing their normal jobs, cleaning schools at night, driving buses, delivering mail to small villages. Regular stuff. Until they saw something that made them question everything. What lives in the Alaskan wilderness? Let's just say there's a reason some of them quit their jobs and moved as far away as possible. And one person? They disappeared completely. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you real horror stories every single day. Now, before we start, I need to warn you, what you're about to hear might make you think twice about going into the wild alone. These aren't campfire tales. These are nightmares that actually happen to real people. Ready? Let's begin with story number 1. My name is Bob Williams, and I've been a night janitor for 12 years. I started this job when my wife got sick and we needed the health insurance. After she passed, I just kept doing it. There's something peaceful about working alone at night, keeping places clean and safe for the next day. I've cleaned office buildings, hospitals, and shopping centers. But for the last 8 years, I've worked at Fairbanks Elementary School here in town. I know every sound that old building makes. The way the heating pipes tick when the temperature drops. How the wooden floors creak in classroom 7, where they never fixed that loose board. The hum of the refrigerator in the teacher's lounge that gets louder around 3 a.m. After 8 years of working midnight to 6 a.m. shifts, that school feels more like home than my apartment. The kids know me too. During the day, when I'm finishing up or doing special projects, they wave and say, "Hi, Mr. Bob." Emma from Mrs. Peterson's 2nd grade class always asks if I found any treasure while cleaning. Tommy Chen likes to show me his drawings. These kids make the job worth it, even when I'm mopping up after someone got sick in the hallway or fixing a toilet that won't stop running. But what happened during my 2nd week of October changed everything I thought I knew about that school. What I'm about to tell you still gives me chills, and I'm not sure anyone will believe me. But I need to get this story out there, because I think other people need to know. October 15th started like any other Tuesday night. I clocked in at midnight, checked my supply cart, and began my usual routine. I always start on the 2nd floor and work my way down. The classrooms up there get dusty fast, and the kids track in leaves this time of year. I was vacuuming Mrs. Johnson's 4th grade room when it happened. At exactly 2:30 a.m., I remember because I always check the time when I'm halfway done with a room, the PA system crackled to life. Now, the PA system never turns on at night. The main controls are locked in the principal's office, and only 3 people have keys: Principal Martinez, the assistant principal, and the head secretary. The building was locked up tight just like every other night. But there it was, that familiar static sound, followed by a small voice. "Mr. Bob, there's something in classroom 14. I stopped the vacuum and listened. The voice was young, maybe 7 or 8 years old. It sounded scared. "Hello?" I called out loud, feeling a little silly. "Is someone there?" Nothing. I finished the room quickly and went straight to classroom 14 on the 1st floor. I unlocked it and flipped on the lights. Empty desks arranged in neat rows, alphabet charts on the walls, a few jackets hanging on the coat hooks that kids forgot to take home. Everything normal. I checked the closet, under the teacher's desk, even behind the reading corner bookshelf. Nothing unusual. Just an empty classroom that smelled like crayons and hand sanitizer. I convinced myself I must have imagined it. Maybe I dozed off for a second while vacuuming. It happens when you work nights for years. Your brain plays tricks on you sometimes. The next night, I made sure to stay extra alert. I even brought a thermos of strong coffee instead of my usual decaf. But everything seemed normal until 2:30 a.m. rolled around again. I was cleaning the boys' bathroom on the 1st floor when the speakers crackled. "Mr. Bob, I'm scared. Please help me." This time, the voice was clearer. It sounded like Emma, sweet little Emma from Mrs. Peterson's class. But something was off about it. Like when you hear a recording of your own voice, and it doesn't sound quite right. "Emma?" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty bathroom. "Emma, where are you, honey?" I dropped my gas. I cleaning supplies and ran through the hallways, checking every classroom, every bathroom, every supply closet. I even checked the gym and the library. The whole building was empty and locked up tight, just like it should be. But I knew what I heard. That was Emma's voice, or something very close to it. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the old PA system was picking up radio signals somehow. Maybe some kid had a walkie-talkie outside and the frequencies got mixed up. There had to be a logical explanation. I finished my shift, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Every shadow seemed darker. Every normal school sound seemed louder. On the third night, I was ready. I brought a small tape recorder, an old one I had from when my wife used to record grocery lists. If I heard voices again, I wanted proof. At 2:30 a.m., I was in the main hallway, right under one of the PA speakers. The static came right on schedule. But this time, it wasn't just one voice. It was several children, all talking at once. "Mr. Bob, come play with us. We're in the basement, Mr. Bob. Come find us." I fumbled for my tape recorder, but my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. By the time I got it recording, the voices had stopped. Here's the thing that really scared me. Fairbanks Elementary doesn't have a basement. I know because I helped with some maintenance work my second year there. The school was built on a concrete slab foundation. There is no basement. But these voices, clear as day, were telling me to come downstairs to a place that doesn't exist. The next morning, I stayed late to talk to Principal Martinez. I told her about the PA system turning on by itself, though I didn't mention the voices asking me to go to a non-existent basement. That would sound crazy. "Bob, that's impossible," she said, adjusting her glasses. "The PA system is completely manual. Someone has to physically turn it on from the control room, and that room stays locked at night." She took me to see it. The control room was just a small closet next to her office, filled with switches and dials that looked like they hadn't been updated since the 1980s. There was a big master switch that had to be flipped to on before any of the smaller switches would work. It was clearly in the off position. "See? The whole system is powered down every night at 5 p.m. Mrs. Garcia turns it off before she leaves." Principal Martinez was right. But I knew what I heard. That night, October 18th, I brought a flashlight and went straight to the control room during my 2:30 a.m. break. I wanted to see for myself what happened when those voices came through. The door was locked, just like always, but I could see through the small window that the master switch was still in the off position. When the voices came, and they did come right on schedule, that switch never moved. "We know you're watching, Mr. Bob," the voices said. "We know you're listening." They were right. The system was off, but somehow these voices were coming through anyway. By the fifth night, something had changed. The voices weren't just asking me to play anymore. They were talking about things they shouldn't know. "Mr. Bob, we know you miss Mrs. Bob," said a voice that sounded like Tommy Chen, but with that same hollow quality Emma's voice had. My wife's name was Barbara, but the kids always called her Mrs. Bob when she volunteered at school events. How could these voices know that? "We know Sarah never calls you," said another voice. "We know you sit by the phone on Sundays." Sarah is my daughter. She lives 3 states away and we haven't talked in 2 years. Not since the fight we had about selling the house after her mother died. But how could anyone at the school know that? "We know you're scared of retiring, Mr. Bob. Scared you'll have nothing left." That hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had never told anyone at work about my fear of retirement. At 58, I am getting close, and the thought terrifies me. What would I do with myself? Who would I be if I wasn't the night janitor who kept the school safe and clean? "We can keep you company forever. Mr. Bob," the voices continued, "you don't have to be alone anymore." I stopped cleaning that night and just sat in the main hallway, listening to these impossible voices tell me secrets about my own life. They knew about my wife's favorite song, about the fight with my daughter, about the pills I take for my back pain, about the Social Security statements I stare at every month. They knew everything. Things got worse the next week. It was a Wednesday morning, and I was finishing up around 7 a.m. when the first kids started arriving. I was mopping the front hallway when I heard little Jessica from kindergarten talking to her mom. "Mommy, the ghost voices are back in the bathroom." "What ghost voices, honey?" "The ones that call Mr. Bob's name. Sarah heard them yesterday, too." My blood went cold. The kids were hearing voices now, during the day? I quickly finished mopping and went to find Mrs. Peterson, Emma's teacher. If anyone would give me straight answers, it would be her. "Oh yes, Bob. Several children have mentioned hearing voices in the bathrooms and empty classrooms. They say the voices know your name." She looked concerned. "We thought maybe it was just an echo from old pipes or something. Kids have such active imaginations." But I knew it wasn't imagination. Whatever was in that school was getting stronger. That night, the voices confirmed it. "We're growing, Mr. Bob. Soon everyone will hear us. Soon everyone will know we're here." On October 25th, I finally understood who I was talking to. I was in the supply closet, organizing cleaning chemicals, when the PA crackled at 2:30 a.m. like always. But this time, I recognized the voices immediately. Emma Patterson. Not Emma from Mrs. Peterson's class. Emma Patterson, who drowned at the community pool last summer. I remembered reading about it in the paper. 7 years old, just like the Emma I knew. Tommy Chen. Not the Tommy who shows me his drawings. Tommy Chen, who died in a car accident 3 months ago. His family had moved away from our district the year before, but I remembered him from when he was in first grade. There were others too. Kids I remembered from years past who had died in accidents, illness, or tragedies. Their voices were coming through the PA system, asking me to come play with them in a basement that didn't exist. "We've been waiting for you, Mr. Bob," Emma Patterson's voice said. "We remember how kind you were to us when we were alive." "You always fixed our messes," said Tommy Chen. "You kept us safe. Now we want to keep you safe too, forever." The dead children wanted to keep me safe. The thought should have been comforting, but instead it filled me with a cold dread I couldn't explain. I tried to ignore the voices after that. I focused on my work, wore headphones, even tried working different hours. But it didn't matter. They found ways to reach me. The voices started coming through the radio in my car during the drive home. They whispered my name through the TV speakers in my apartment. When I unplugged everything, they somehow came through my neighbor's radio in the next apartment over. "You can't ignore us forever, Mr. Bob. We followed you home because we care about you. We don't want you to be lonely anymore." My neighbors started complaining. Mrs. Rodriguez next door said she could hear me talking to someone at all hours. But when she listened carefully, she only heard my voice. The voices of the dead children were apparently just for me now. Principal Martinez called me into her office on a Thursday morning in early November. She looked worried and tired. "Bob, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Are you feeling okay? Mentally, I mean?" I knew this was coming. "Why do you ask?" "Teachers have reported seeing Juan out talking to empty classrooms. Yesterday, Mrs. Garcia said you were having a full conversation with classroom 12, but there was nobody there. You were answering questions that nobody asked." I tried to explain about the voices, about the PA system, about the dead children. But as the words came out of my mouth, I realized how crazy they sounded. "Bob, we've checked the PA system multiple times. It's been completely disconnected for maintenance since October 20th. There's no way it could have been making any sounds." She was right. I checked later that day. The wires to the main control room had been unplugged for weeks, but I had been hearing the voices every single night. "I think you need some time off," Principal Martinez said gently. "Maybe see someone to talk about this." I knew she was trying to help, but I also knew that no amount of time off or therapy was going to stop what was happening to me. After I was put on leave, the voices got stronger. They weren't just coming through speakers anymore. They were coming from inside the walls of my apartment. "Mr. Bob, why did you leave us at school? We're lonely without you. We followed you home because you belong with us now." I would press my ear against the wall and hear them clearly, like they were right on the other side of the drywall. My neighbors never heard anything. When I called the landlord to complain about voices in the walls, he threatened to evict me. The voices had become part of me somehow. They lived in my head now, constant companions whether I wanted them or not. "You're not crazy, Mr. Bob," Emma's voice would say when doubt crept in. "We're real. We're here with you." "We'll never leave you alone again," Tommy would add. "Isn't that what you wanted?" They were right. I had been lonely since my wife died. I had been afraid of retirement, afraid of having nothing left to do and no one to care about. These children's voices filled that empty space, even if they came from beyond the grave. By December, I had stopped fighting it. The voices were with me constantly now, in my apartment, in stores, walking down the street. They kept me company during the long, empty days of forced leave from work. "We have a place for you, Mr. Bob," they told me. "A place where you can take care of us forever. No more loneliness, no more fear of getting old. Just us, playing together forever." I knew what they were asking. I knew what playing forever meant. But the alternative was growing old alone, forgotten, with nothing but memories of my dead wife and a daughter who wouldn't return my calls. On December 15th, exactly 2 months after I first heard Emma's voice through the PA system, I made my choice. I wrote a letter to Principal Martinez, explaining that none of this was her fault. I wrote another letter to my daughter Sarah, telling her I loved her and I was sorry we fought. I left both letters on my kitchen table, along with my apartment keys and the contact information for the landlord. Then I wrote one final note. "Gone to play with my friends. I can't tell you exactly where I am because I'm not sure I understand it myself. It's not the school, and it's not really a basement, even though that's how the voices described it. It's more like a space between places, a playground that exists outside of normal time and space. The children are here, all of them, Emma and Tommy and dozens of others I remember from my years as a janitor. They're exactly as I remember them, young and happy and full of energy. They never grow older here, they never get hurt. And they weren't lying. I'm not lonely anymore. I spend my time playing games with them, helping them with puzzles, cleaning up after their activities. It's like being a janitor and a grandfather all at once, which is all I ever really wanted to be. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Sometimes I think about my old life, my apartment, the school I used to clean. But then one of the children takes my hand and asks me to help them with something, and I remember why I chose this. I'm not warning you away from night shift work, and I'm not telling you to be afraid of voices in empty buildings. What I'm telling you is this. Sometimes the dead reach out to the living not to frighten them, but because they care. Sometimes the voices calling your name in the dark aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to save you from something worse. Loneliness. That's the real horror story. If you're reading this and you work nights alone, if you hear voices calling your name from empty rooms, listen carefully to what they're really asking. Are they trying to scare you? Or are they offering you something you've been missing? The choice, as always, is yours. But choose carefully. Once you accept their invitation to play forever, there's no going back to the world of the living. Trust me on that one. My name is Mia Rodriguez, and I've been driving school buses in Alaska for 3 years. Route 47 takes me through some of the most isolated wilderness in North America, 40 miles of forest between Anchorage and the remote communities near Chugach State Park. In 3 years, I've handled everything from whiteout blizzards to kids having seizures in the back seats. But I need to tell you about something that happened last week, something that connects to the most terrifying experience of my childhood. Because what's hunting in the Alaska wilderness isn't what the Park Service wants you to believe. And it's been watching me for 12 years. When I was 8, my family went camping at Denali National Park. My dad gave me a disposable camera to keep me busy, and I loved taking pictures of everything. Squirrels, wildflowers, my baby brother sleeping. On day 2, while my parents dealt with Miguel's crying, I wandered toward a creek 30 feet from our campsite. Through my camera viewfinder, I saw what looked like a park ranger standing between the trees. But when I looked closer, the ranger had the head of a massive wolf. It was dragging something heavy wrapped in blue tarp, the same color as a missing hiker's tent we'd heard about on the radio. The creature's yellow eyes reflected the camera flash as I took 3 quick pictures. It dropped its burden and started toward me, but I ran back to my parents. That night, Rangers found Ranger Dave Williams's torn uniform and blood near where I'd been photographing. His body was never recovered. When we developed the film, my parents saw everything I'd captured. The wolf-headed thing was clear as day, wearing pieces of Williams's Ranger uniform. The bundle it carried had a human hand sticking out, wearing Williams' wedding ring. The FBI took our photos as evidence, but the case went cold. Williams was officially listed as a B's, our attack victim. My parents made me promise never to tell anyone what I really saw. For 12 years, I kept that promise. Until last Tuesday, when I realized the thing from my childhood had found me again. October 23rd, 7:30 a.m., Route 47, eastbound. I was running late because Bus 847's radio had been acting up all week, crackling with static whenever I passed mile marker 15, right where the forest gets thickest. The district mechanic said it was probably atmospheric interference from the mountains. 42 kids on board, grades K through 12. The little ones were excited because it was picture day at Riverside Elementary. They kept asking me to take their photo with my phone. I don't really do pictures, I told them, same as always. As we approached the school, I did my standard mirror check. Left side, right side, interior. That's when I saw it standing at the forest edge behind us. 7 feet tall, wolf head, wearing torn pieces of what looked like a park ranger's uniform. The exact same creature from my childhood photos. My hands started shaking on the steering wheel, but I had to stay calm. 42 kids were counting on me to get them safely to school. "Miss Mia, you okay?" asked Jake, one of the 8th graders. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Just tired," I lied, pulling into the school parking lot. I went through my normal routine: parking brake, hazard lights, check mirrors one more time. The creature was gone, but I knew what I'd seen. And deep down, I knew it had been looking specifically for me. The kids filed off, chattering about picture day. I watched every single one disappear safely into the building before I allowed myself to breathe again. But as I sat in my empty bus, my radio crackled to life with a voice that wasn't dispatch. Deep, rough, like someone speaking through a mouth full of broken teeth. "Hello, little photographer." That afternoon, the real horror began. I was picking up the kids for their trip home when my radio started malfunctioning worse than ever. Not just static, actual sounds coming through. Growling, breathing, and occasionally, that same rough voice. "I've been waiting 12 years for you to come back to my territory." I turned the radio volume down so the kids couldn't hear, but the voice continued anyway, coming through my earpiece now. "Do you still have those pictures from Denali, little girl?" I did have them, hidden in a shoebox under my bed, along with the newspaper clipping about Ranger Williams's disappearance. I'd never been able to throw them away. As we approached mile marker 15, where the woods pressed closest to the road, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Fresh scratches on the trees, claw marks, gouged deep into the bark. And hanging from a branch about 10 feet up was a torn piece of blue fabric, the same color as the tarp I'd seen in my childhood photos. "You documented my kill that day," the voice continued. "Showed the world what I really am. The FBI knows the truth about what hunts in Alaska's wilderness, but they'll never tell the public." Through my side mirror, I caught movement in the trees. Something large keeping pace with the bus, moving parallel to us through the forest. The kids were getting restless. Little Emma Murphy kept asking why we were driving so slowly, and I realized I'd unconsciously slowed to 35 miles per hour on a 50-mile-per-hour road. But I was terrified to go faster, terrified to lose sight of whatever was tracking us through those trees. "Miss Mia," said Tommy Henderson from the middle of the bus. "There's something really big running next to us in the woods." Several kids rushed to the right side windows, pressing their faces against the glass. "I see it," shouted Sarah Kim. "It's huge, and it's running on 2 legs like a person." "Everybody sit down now," I ordered, my voice sharper than I'd ever used with the kids before. Get away from the windows and buckle your seatbelts. But they'd already seen too much. Miss Mia, that thing has a dog's head, whispered Marcus Thompson, his 8-year-old voice full of terror. But it's wearing clothes like a person. My radio erupted with that growling laugh again. The children see me now too, fresh little witnesses. Should I collect them like I collected Ranger Williams? That's when I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. The creature had been hunting in Alaska's wilderness for decades, maybe centuries. Ranger Williams was just one victim among many. How many hikers, campers, and hunters had disappeared over the years? How many deaths were blamed on bears or exposure when something far worse was responsible? And now, it was threatening my kids. I grabbed the radio mic with shaking hands. You leave these children alone. They haven't done anything to you. But they've seen me now, just like you did 12 years ago. Witnesses must be handled. Through my rearview mirror, I watched the creature emerge from the tree line behind us. It was running on 2 legs down the center of the highway, gaining on the bus with impossible speed. The kids started screaming. What is that thing? It's chasing us! Miss Maya, go faster! I floored the accelerator, pushing bus 847 to 65 mph on the winding mountain road. The diesel engine roared, and I prayed the brakes would hold if I needed to stop suddenly. In my mirror, the creature was keeping pace effortlessly. Its yellow eyes reflected the afternoon sun like headlights, and I could see its mouth hanging open, revealing rows of serrated teeth that no wolf should have. You can't outrun me forever, the voice taunted through my radio. I know where each of these children lives. I know their bedroom's windows. I know which ones sleep alone. That's when I made the decision that probably saved all our lives. Instead of heading to the first bus stop, I took a hard right onto Mountain View Road, the route that leads directly to the Alaska State Trooper Station. Dispatch, this is bus 847, I called into my mic. I have a code red emergency. Unknown hostile individual pursuing my bus, requesting immediate assistance at mile marker 23. Copy, 847, units en route. What's the nature of the threat? I looked in my mirror. The creature had stopped in the middle of the highway and was watching us drive away. Even from a quarter-mile distance, I could see it clearly against the asphalt. Large individual on foot, approximately 7 feet tall, exhibiting aggressive behavior towards school children. Appears to be wearing some kind of animal mask or costume. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was close enough to get help. The state troopers met us at their station. 3 patrol cars, all with body cameras running. Trooper Martinez took my statement while Officer Chen interviewed the kids. 12 children confirmed seeing a really big person with a wolf head chasing our bus. Their descriptions were remarkably consistent, which only made me more terrified. Because if 12 kids saw the same impossible thing I did, then it was real, and it was still out there. That night, I sat in my apartment with every light on, staring at those 3 photographs from Denali. The creature in the images looked exactly the same as what had chased our bus, unchanged after 12 years, as if it didn't age like normal living things. My phone rang at 2:17 a.m. The Alaska State Troopers can't protect you forever, that familiar rough voice said, and they certainly can't protect 42 children spread across 6 different neighborhoods. I hung up and unplugged my phone, but it rang again anyway. I've killed hunters, hikers, park rangers, and campers for over a century. The government knows I exist. Those FBI agents who took your childhood photos weren't investigating a bear attack. They were documenting evidence of something the public can never know about. What do you want from me? I whispered. Bring me those photographs from Denali. All 3 of them, plus the negatives. M. Eat me at mile marker 15 tomorrow night at midnight. Come alone. And if I don't, then I start visiting your students, one by one, starting with little Emma Murphy, who lives in that blue house with the broken porch light. The line went dead. I knew exactly which house he meant. I drove past it twice every day. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't risk putting those kids in danger again. But I also couldn't hide forever. So I made my own plan. At 11:45 p.m., I drove my personal truck to mile marker 15, carrying a backpack with those 3 photographs, the negatives, and something else the creature probably wasn't expecting. A digital camera with a high-powered flash and motion sensor trigger. If this thing had been killing people in Alaska's wilderness for over a century, someone needed to document the truth. Real evidence that couldn't be covered up or explained away. I parked at the pullout and waited. At exactly midnight, it emerged from the forest. Up close, the creature was even more terrifying than my memories. Its wolf head was the size of a beer keg, with yellow eyes that seemed to glow from within. The ranger uniform it wore was faded and torn, decorated with decades of bloodstains. But what made me nearly vomit was the collection of name tags pinned to its chest. Williams, Morrison, Chen, Patterson, Kowalski. All the missing people from Alaska's wilderness over the past 20 years. "You brought the photographs," it said, its voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "I brought them," I confirmed, setting my backpack on the ground between us. "But I want to know something first. Why do you kill people?" The creature tilted its massive head, studying me with those predatory eyes. "Your kind invaded my territory, built roads through my hunting grounds, brought metal beasts that spew poison into my air." It gestured toward my truck with one claw, its hand. "I am merely maintaining the balance. By murdering innocent people, by removing invasive species, just as your government removes wolves that kill too much livestock." Stepped closer, and I could smell the stench of rotting meat on its breath. "But you, little photographer, you're special. You documented my existence when you were just a cub. You showed the world what really hunts in these forests, even though your adults chose not to believe." The creature reached into its torn uniform and pulled out something that made my heart stop. A digital camera, professional grade, with a telephoto lens. "I've learned to use your tools over the decades, adapted to your technology. These devices capture truth in ways the human eye cannot." It raised the camera and took several pictures of me, the flash temporarily blinding me in the darkness. "Now I document my kills, just as you documented me. The FBI has files full of my photographs, evidence they'll never share with the public. Why are you telling me this?" The creature's mouth stretched into something that might have been a smile, revealing those rows of serrated teeth. "Because you're going to help me. You drive past my territory every day, bringing me fresh prey. 42 children, twice daily, completely unprotected. I'll never hurt those kids. You won't have to. You'll simply develop mechanical problems at convenient locations. A broken-down school bus is like a wounded animal. It attracts predators." That's when I understood the full scope of its plan. It didn't just want the photographs. It wanted me as an accomplice, a way to access victims without having to hunt them in the wilderness. And if I refuse, then I visit those children anyway. But I start with the smallest ones first. I pretended to consider its offer while slowly reaching into my backpack. My fingers found the digital camera I'd hidden beneath the old photographs. "I need to think about it," I said, stalling for time. "There's nothing to think about. Give me the photographs and accept your new role as my hunting partner, or watch 42 children disappear one by one over the next month." The creature stepped forward, extending one clawed hand toward my backpack. That's when I triggered the motion sensor camera. The high-powered flash exploded like a lightning bolt, temporarily blinding both of us. But in that split second of illumination, I saw something that explained everything. The creature cast no shadow, and in the camera's LCD screen, where the monster should have been, there was only empty air and floating pieces of a ranger uniform. This wasn't just some unknown species of predator. This was something that existed partially outside normal reality, something that could only be seen directly or through photographic equipment, which explained why the FBI took my childhood photos so seriously, and why this thing was so obsessed with cameras. "You little witch!" it roared, lunging toward me with claws extended. But I was already running back to my truck, clutching the digital camera and its memory card full of impossible images. Behind me, I could hear the creature crashing through the forest, but I knew it wouldn't follow me onto the main highway. It was a wilderness predator. It needed the isolation of the deep woods to hunt effectively. I made it to my truck and locked the doors, my hands shaking so badly I could barely start the engine. As I drove away, my cell phone rang one final time. "This isn't over, little photographer. I know where you live. I know where you work. And I know that eventually, you'll have to bring those children back through my territory." That was 6 days ago. Since then, I've been working with a FBI agent named Sarah Chen, sister of one of the creature's victims from 2019. She confirmed what I'd suspected. The federal government has been tracking this thing for decades, along with similar entities across North America. They call them territorial anomalies, cryptids that exist partially outside normal space-time, making them nearly impossible to hunt or kill. The creature I encountered has been responsible for over 200 disappearances in Alaska since the 1920s. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. It's not the only one. Agent Chen showed me classified files documenting similar creatures in Montana, Washington, and northern Canada. The government knows they exist, but public disclosure would cause mass panic and potentially interfere with the entity's natural behavior patterns. As long as people stick to established trails and don't venture too deep into the wilderness alone, casualties remain relatively low. But if the general public knew what was really hunting in America's forests, tourism would collapse and rural communities would be abandoned. So they maintain the fiction. Bear attacks, getting lost, exposure, anything except the truth. But I've seen the truth. I've photographed it. And I have digital evidence stored in 17 different locations that proves what's really out there. Tomorrow, I go back to work. Back to driving Route 47 through those dark forests, past mile marker 15 where something ancient and hungry waits in the shadows. The district assigned me a new bus, number 923, with upgraded radio equipment and GPS tracking. They think better technology will keep us safe. They don't understand what we're really dealing with. But I do. And I'll be ready. Because those 42 kids are counting on me to get them safely through the wilderness. And I've never lost a student yet. Even if it kills me, I won't start now. This account was found on Mia Rodriguez's laptop after she and Bus 923 disappeared on October 31st, along with 38 students. 4 children were found wandering the highway 3 miles from mile marker 15 with no memory of what happened to their classmates. Alaska State Troopers continue to investigate, but the case remains open. The digital photographs referenced in this document were never recovered. My name is Janet Murphy, and I've been flying mail to remote Alaskan villages for 15 years. I got my pilot's license when I was 25 and started working for the Postal Service right after. Flying a Cessna 180 across the wilderness, delivering letters and supplies to places you can't reach by car or boat. I've landed on frozen lakes in 40-below weather, navigated through blizzards that would ground commercial flights, and seen things in the wilderness that most people would never believe. But what happened during my October delivery to Tukarak village wasn't just supernatural. It was something far worse. Something that's been hunting in Alaska's wilderness for thousands of years, wearing human faces and walking on human legs. I'd been servicing Tukarak for 8 years, flying there once a month with mail and emergency supplies. It's a tiny Inupiat village about 200 miles northwest of Fairbanks, population 52. The people there weren't just clients, they were friends. Bill Kanguk, the postmaster who carved miniature totems while waiting for my monthly arrival. Mary Tutu with her 3 kids who'd wave at my plane and help me unload supplies. Old Pete who told stories about the Tornarsuk, ancient shapeshifters that his grandfather claimed still roamed the deep wilderness. I always thought Pete's stories were just folklore until that October morning. The flight started normally. Perfect weather, clear skies, my Cessna loaded with mail sacks and medical supplies. But as I approached Tukarak's airstrip, I noticed something wrong with the wildlife. Usually ravens and ptarmigan would scatter as my plane passed overhead. Today they were flying in the opposite direction, Hundreds of birds streaming south like they were fleeing something. The caribou were gone too. The migration route that always brought herds past Tukarak was completely empty. In 15 years of flying this route, I'd never seen the tundra so lifeless. I touched down on the gravel strip and immediately felt the wrongness in the air. It wasn't just quiet. It was empty quiet, like the silence after a predator passes through. My engine ticking as it cooled was the only sound for miles. Then I saw Bill walking toward my plane from the terminal building, and my blood turned to ice. It looked like Bill, same height, same weathered face, same postal service jacket. But something was wearing his appearance like an ill-fitting mask. The way he moved was wrong, too fluid, like his joints bent in directions they shouldn't. His smile was too wide, stretching his mouth in a way that showed too many teeth. "Good morning, Janet," he said in Bill's voice, but the words came out slightly delayed, like he was remembering how human speech worked. "We have been waiting for you." As he got closer, I saw his eyes. They weren't Bill's warm brown eyes. They were solid black, but not empty black. These eyes had depth, like looking into a deep forest pool at night. And behind that darkness, something was looking back at me. Something ancient and hungry that had learned to imitate human features. "Where's the real Bill?" I asked, backing toward my plane. The thing wearing Bill's face tilted its head at an unnatural angle. "I am Bill. I am Mary. I am Pete. I am everyone now." Its voice began to shift and change. First Bill's deep tone, then Mary's lighter voice, then Pete's elderly rasp, sometimes blending all three together in harmonies that human throats couldn't produce. That's when I saw the others emerging from houses around the village. 51 figures that looked like the people I'd known for years, but all moving with that same fluid, predatory grace. All wearing faces that were almost perfect copies, but wrong in subtle ways. Eyes too bright, smiles too wide, movements too smooth. The thing that looked like Mary approached with 3 smaller figures that resembled her children. But children don't move like spiders, don't cock their heads to listen to sounds only they can hear. The smallest one, Emma's doppelganger, opened her mouth and let out a sound that was part giggle, part bird call, part something else entirely. Something that made my spine crawl and my vision blur. The old flesh grew cold, the Bill thing explained, its voice now cycling through different tones like a radio searching for stations. "Winter kills the weak, but we keep the meat warm. We walk in borrowed skin until spring brings fresh prey." I realized with growing horror that these weren't possessed people or mind-controlled villagers. These were predators that had consumed the entire village and were now wearing their identities like clothing. The real Bill, the real Mary, the real children, they were gone, digested, replaced by things that had been perfecting human mimicry for millennia. "You fly to other villages," the Mary thing said, its head rotating further than any human neck could turn. "You know their faces, their voices. You could bring us to them." All 52 creatures spoke in unison now, a chorus of stolen voices. "Help us spread. Help us feed." I pulled out my satellite phone to call for help, but the screen showed something impossible. Dozens of missed calls from Bill's number, all placed after I'd landed, all containing the same voicemail. "Janet, help us. We're trapped inside these things. They're learning to be us. Don't let them leave the village." The real villagers were still alive somewhere inside these creatures, conscious and aware, while something else wore their bodies like suits. My GPS unit was spinning wildly, but not from interference. It was tracking movement. Dozens of heat signatures surrounding my plane, closing in from all directions. But when I looked up, I only saw the 52 fake villagers standing motionless around me. The extra heat signatures were underground, round, moving through tunnels beneath the permafrost. The humming started then, a sound that vibrated through the ground and into my bones. But it wasn't coming from the creatures around me. It was rising from below, from a vast network of tunnels that had been carved under the tundra centuries ago. the sound of something massive moving through the earth, something that had been sleeping until the warming climate melted the permafrost deep enough to wake it. "The mother rises," all 52 voices said together. "She has slept through 1,000 winters, but now the deep ice melts. She needs new children to carry her spawn to the warm places." The ground beneath my feet began to crack, and I could see something pale and glistening moving in the darkness below. The parent creature, something the size of a subway car, all writhing tentacles and snapping mouths, covered in what looked like hundreds of human faces pressed into its flesh like masks. The faces of everyone these things had ever consumed, still moving, still trying to speak. I ran for my plane as the bill thing lunged at me with movements too fast and sharp to be human. Its fingers had extended into claws, and its mouth had opened wider than any human jaw, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Not Bill anymore, if it ever had been. Just something wearing his appearance to hunt. The other creatures moved to surround my plane, but they weren't trying to catch me. They were herding me toward the cracking ground where something massive was emerging. I could see it now, the mother creature pulling itself up from the tunnels, covered in hundreds of human faces that were still alive, still screaming. I managed to start my engine and taxi toward the runway, but the fake villagers didn't try to stop me. They were laughing, all of them, with voices that weren't quite human anymore, because they knew something I was just beginning to understand. My fuel gauge was reading empty. Impossible. I'd topped off in Fairbanks. But as I looked closer, I could see drops of aviation fuel scattered around where my plane had been parked. They'd drained my tanks while I was talking to the bill thing. I was trapped. That's when I heard the real voices, faint, desperate whispers coming from the creatures themselves. "Janet, inside, help us." The real villagers were still conscious inside these things, experiencing every moment of their captivity, feeling their bodies being used as puppets. "The runway is short," Mary's real voice whispered from inside the creature wearing her face. "But if you gun it, if you dump the mail weight, you might make it. Don't let them follow you to other villages." I dumped every mail sack, every supply box, everything that wasn't essential for flight. The mother creature was fully emerged now, the size of a small building, covered in the faces of victims going back centuries. It was moving toward my plane with surprising speed, its offspring following in perfect formation. I pushed the throttle to full power and started my takeoff roll. The runway at Tukarak is barely long enough for a loaded Cessna. With no cargo and full power, I might just clear the trees at the far end. Behind me, the creatures let out a sound that was part roar, part scream, part something that had no name. The mother creature's tentacles lashed out, missing my tail by inches as I pulled up into the air. But I wasn't safe yet. As I climbed toward cruising altitude, I saw them in my mirrors, dark shapes launching themselves from the village, flying after me with wings that weren't quite bird, weren't quite bat. The offspring could fly, and they were fast. I pushed my Cessna to its maximum speed, but they were gaining. 3 of them, looking like twisted versions of the villagers but with long leathery wings sprouting from their backs. The one that looked like Bill was in the lead, its mouth open in a soundless shriek, claws extended. That's when my engine started awing. The fuel I had left was contaminated. They'd mixed something into it, something that was slowly killing my engine. I had maybe 10 minutes of power left. I radioed Mayday on every frequency, broadcasting my position and what I'd seen. Most stations didn't respond, but one voice came back, a gruff old bush pilot named Chuck who flew supplies to the northern villages. "Janet, this is Chuck. I copy your transmission. Those things you're describing. We've been getting reports for weeks. Villages going quiet, then starting up again but wrong. Fish and wildlife thinks it's some kind of prehistoric species awakened by climate change. Chuck, they're following me. If I go down, they'll spread to other villages." "Roger that. I've got a fuel drop prepared at emergency strip mile 47. Can you make it?" I looked at my instruments. Engine temperature rising, oil pressure dropping, fuel contaminated. The flying creatures were close enough now that I could see their faces. Perfect copies of people I'd known, but stretched and distorted around predatory skulls. Mile 47 was an abandoned mining strip, barely maintained, but it was only 15 minutes away. I might make it if my engine held together. The first creature reached my plane and landed on the wing, its claws scraping against aluminum. Through the window, I could see Bill's face, but his mouth was opening wider and wider, showing rows of teeth that went back into his throat like a shark's. He was trying to bite through the window glass. I went into a sharp dive, pulling negative G's to shake him loose. He tumbled away, but the other two were still coming. My engine was running rough now, missing cylinders, barely producing enough power to maintain altitude. Mile 47 appeared ahead, a dirt strip carved into the mountainside with Chuck's fuel truck waiting at the far end. I was going to have to land dead stick, with the no engine power, while creatures that could perfectly mimic human faces tried to tear my plane apart. I cut the engine to prevent fire and glided toward the runway. The Bill creature landed on my windscreen, its face inches from mine, speaking in the real Bill's voice. "Janet, please, I'm still in here. End this. Don't let them use me anymore." I could see tears in its eyes. The real Bill, trapped and conscious while something else controlled his body. I touched down hard on the rough strip, bouncing and skidding toward Chuck's truck. The creatures fell away from the impact, but they were already regrouping, preparing to attack Chuck. "Get in!" Chuck shouted, and I abandoned my plane, running for his truck as the three flying things circled overhead, calling to each other in voices that mixed human speech with sounds no human throat could make. We made it to Chuck's backup plane, a larger aircraft with enough fuel to reach Fairbanks. As we took off, I looked back at mile 47 and saw the creatures standing in perfect formation on the abandoned runway, watching us go. They weren't pursuing anymore. They were learning, observing how humans escape, how we cooperate, how we survive. "There's more," Chuck said grimly. 12 villages have gone dark in the last month. When search teams investigate, they find everyone back to normal, but the families don't match DNA records anymore. Fish and Wildlife has teams tracking something they're calling Arctic mimics, creatures that evolved to imitate prey during ice ages. The government response was swift and thorough. The entire region was declared a biological hazard zone. Military teams went in with flamethrowers and high explosives. According to classified reports I later obtained, they found tunnel networks stretching for hundreds of miles under the permafrost, containing the remains of thousands of victims going back centuries. But they never found the mother creature. Seismic equipment still detects something large moving under the ice, heading south toward populated areas. The warming climate is melting deeper permafrost layers every year, opening paths that have been frozen for millennia. I moved to Florida, but I monitor Alaska news obsessively. Every time a village reports unusual wildlife behavior, every time families seem different after rescue operations, every time someone reports relatives with empty eyes, I know they're spreading. The worst part is the phone calls. 3 times a week, my phone rings, and I hear Bill's voice, or Mary's voice, or one of the children begging me to come back. "We're still here, Janet, still trapped inside. Help us." But I know it's not really them anymore. It's the creatures, using stolen voices to lure me back. Climate change isn't just melting ice caps and raising sea levels. It's thawing things that have been locked away for good reason. Ancient predators that evolved alongside early humans, learning to copy our faces, our voices, our loved ones, using our own compassion as a weapon against us. Last week, I got a call from Chuck. He'd been hired to investigate another quiet village, this one only 100 miles from Anchorage. When he arrived, everyone seemed normal, until he noticed that all 53 residents had the same subtle wrongness in their movements, the same 2 wide smiles. "They're getting better at it, Janet," he whispered over the phone. "More convincing. If I hadn't known what to look for, I would have never suspected. They're learning to be perfect humans." The line went quiet for a moment. Then Chuck's voice came back, but different somehow. "Why don't you come visit us, Janet? We'd love to see you again, all of us." I hung up and haven't answered my phone since. They're not just spreading through Alaska anymore. They're learning to use technology, to communicate across distances, to coordinate their hunting. And every person they replace makes them more convincing, more human. The old Innu, Piat legends were right about the Tornarsuk, shapeshifters that could wear any face, speak any voice, become anyone you trusted. But the legends never mentioned the worst part. They keep their victims alive inside, conscious and aware, feeling every moment as something else puppets their body to hunt the people they love. Somewhere in Alaska, Bill Kanguk is still screaming inside his stolen skin. Mary Tutu is still trying to protect children who aren't her children anymore. And every day, they learn to be more human, while something ancient and hungry spreads south, wearing faces we trust, speaking with voices we love. The ice is melting, and what we thought was climate change is just the beginning of something far worse crawling up from the deep cold, hungry for warm flesh and familiar faces. My name is Jake Morrison, and I've been a wilderness survival instructor and hunting guide in Alaska for 17 years. I've led clients through grizzly encounters, whiteout blizzards, and river crossings that would make your blood freeze. I've pulled hypothermic tourists out of crevasses and talked panicked hunters through wolf-pack encounters. In all those years, I thought I'd seen every predator and natural threat this state could throw at a human being. I was wrong, dead wrong. What I encountered during a routine winter survival course in December changed everything I believed about what lives in the Alaskan wilderness. And after what happened to my clients, I'll never guide another group into the deep bush again. The Alaska Wilderness Survival Institute is based out of Fairbanks, and we run specialized winter courses for military personnel, law enforcement, and extreme outdoors enthusiasts. These aren't your typical weekend camping trips. We're talking 3-day expeditions into areas where the nearest road is 50 miles away and the temperature hits -40 on a warm day. December 15th was supposed to be a straightforward course. 4 clients, 2 Army Rangers preparing for Arctic deployment, a wildlife photographer named Sarah Chen who wanted wilderness skills for her remote assignments, and Dr. Michael Torres, a university researcher studying climate adaptation. All experienced outdoors people with solid winter camping backgrounds. We flew out in a chartered bush plane to a lake about 60 miles northeast of Fairbanks, deep in the White Mountains wilderness area. The plan was simple. Establish base camp the first day, practice advanced shelter building and cold weather survival techniques day 2, then extraction on day 3. I'd run this exact course location 12 times before without incident. The pilot, Ray Kowalski, dropped us on the Froze N Lake at noon under crystal clear skies, 28 below zero with no wind. Perfect conditions for winter training. Ray would return exactly 72 hours later for pickup. Until then, we were completely on our own. "This is gorgeous," Sarah said, taking photos of the surrounding peaks. "Feel like we're the only people on Earth." She had no idea how right she was. The first sign something was wrong came while we were setting up camp. I was showing the group proper snow cave construction when one of the rangers, Sergeant Collins, held up his hand for silence. "You hear that?" he whispered. We all stopped and listened. The wilderness was dead quiet. No wind, no animal sounds, nothing. That should have been our first warning. Even in winter, you typically hear ravens, the distant howl of wolves, something. This silence felt empty, like everything living had fled the area. "Probably just the cold," I told them, but I was already feeling uneasy. In 17 years of guiding, I'd developed instincts about when something wasn't right. Those instincts were screaming now. We finished camp setup without further incident, had dinner around our carefully contained fire, and settled into our sleeping arrangements. The Rangers shared a military-grade Arctic tent. Dr. Torres had his own research-grade shelter. Sarah was in a high-end mountaineering tent, and I used my standard guide setup, a modified Quingy snow shelter that could handle anything Alaska threw at it. Around 2 a.m., I woke to Sarah screaming. I was out of my shelter in seconds, headlamp blazing, survival knife in hand. The screaming stopped as suddenly as it had started. Sarah's tent was intact, no signs of disturbance in the snow around it. "Sarah, you okay in there?" Silence. Then a weak voice. "Jake? Something was scratching at my tent." The Rangers were up now too. Tactical flashlight, sweeping the perimeter. Dr. Torres emerged from his shelter looking rattled. We all converged on Sarah's tent. "What kind of scratching?" Collins asked. Both Rangers had their sidearms drawn. Standard bear protocol. Like claws, but wrong somehow. Too deliberate. Too intelligent. I examined the tent fabric with my headlamp. No claw marks, no tears, but there were marks in the snow around the tent. Not paw prints exactly. More like something had been pressing itself against the nylon from the outside, leaving strange indentations. Could be a black bear, I said, though I didn't believe it. Bears don't behave that way, and they should have been in hibernation anyway. Everyone stay calm. We'll keep watching shifts. But as I studied those marks in the snow, my blood was running cold. They looked almost like handprints, human-sized handprints, with claws. The rest of the night passed without incident, but none of us got any real sleep. When dawn broke, I made a decision that probably saved our lives. We're moving camp, I announced. There's better training terrain about 2 miles north. That was a lie. I just wanted us away from whatever had visited Sarah's tent. We broke camp and started hiking north through the forest. The snow was knee-deep and the terrain was challenging, but my clients were all in good shape. What bothered me was the continued silence. No bird calls, no small animal tracks in the snow, nothing. It was like we were walking through a dead zone. Around noon, we stopped for lunch in a small clearing. Dr. Torres was checking his GPS when he frowned. That's odd. My GPS is showing we're in a completely different location than where we should be. I checked my own GPS unit, same problem. According to the satellites, we were 15 miles east of our actual position. But that was impossible. I'd been following compass bearings all morning. Solar flares can mess with GPS, I said, though high magnetic activity wasn't forecast. We'll navigate by compass and landmarks. But when I looked around, the landmarks weren't where the A should be either. The distinctive peak that should have been to our west was now behind us to the south. The ridge line that should have marked our eastern boundary was nowhere to be seen. We were lost, in terrain I'd guided through dozens of times. "Jake," Sarah said quietly, "what are those?" She was pointing to a line of trees about 50 yards away. At first I didn't see anything unusual. Then I noticed them, marks on the tree bark, not bear scratches or antler rubs. These looked like symbols, carved deep into the bark, arranged in vertical lines up and down the tree trunks. "Probably old trapper marks," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. I'd never seen markings like these before. Sergeant Collins approached one of the marked trees with his weapon drawn. "Sir, these aren't tool marks. Look at the depth, the precision. These were made with claws, very large claws." He was right. The symbols, and they were definitely symbols, not random scratches, had been gouged into the bark by something with razor-sharp talons. But the patterns were too organized, too purposeful to be animal markings. "We're setting up defensive camp," I announced. "Something's not right here." We found a spot with good sight lines and natural barriers, a small rise with boulders on 3 sides. As we set up camp, I noticed more of the symbols carved into nearby trees. They seemed to form a rough circle around our position. "Jake," Dr. Torres called me over. "You need to see this." He'd been examining one of the symbol trees with a magnifying glass. "These carvings are fresh. The sap is still sticky. But look at this." He pointed to the base of the tree. Tracks. In the soft snow around the tree base were the clearest prints I'd ever seen. And they were impossible. The tracks looked human, definitely bipedal, definitely the right size for a human foot. But they had claws. Low, sharp claws extending from each toe, and there was something else wrong with them. They were too long, too narrow, like human feet that had been stretched. "What the hell makes tracks like that?" Collins whispered. I had no answer. In 17 years of guiding in Alaska, I'd seen grizzly tracks, wolf tracks, wolverine tracks, even the rare lynx print. These looked like nothing in any wildlife manual. "We're getting out of here," I decided. "Pack light, emergency gear only. We're hiking back to the lake." But when we tried to retrace our route, we hit another problem. The terrain had changed. The valley we'd hiked through that morning was gone, replaced by a steep ridge that shouldn't have existed. The stream we'd crossed was flowing in the wrong direction. Even the snow depth was different. It was like the landscape was shifting around us. "This is impossible," Dr. Torres said, staring at his GPS. "According to this, we've moved 30 miles since this morning. But we've barely hiked 5 miles total." That's when we heard the first howl. It came from somewhere to the north, echoing off the mountains. But it wasn't a wolf howl or any animal sound I'd ever heard. It was too articulated, too vocal, like someone trying to mimic a howl but not quite getting it right. "Human?" Sarah asked hopefully. Another howl answered from the east, then another from the south. We were surrounded. "Defensive positions," I ordered. "Back to back, weapons ready." We formed a tight circle, facing outward. The Rangers had their sidearms, I had my rifle, Dr. Torres had a flare gun, and Sarah had bear spray. The howling continued, coming from all directions now, getting closer. That's when I saw the first one. It moved between the trees about 100 yards away, just at the edge of our vision. Tall, maybe 7 feet, moving on 2 legs, but wrong somehow. The proportions were off, too thin, too angular, and it was pale, almost white, like it had never seen sunlight. "Contact north side," Collins called. "I've got visual on something, but I can't make out what it is." More movement in the trees. They were circling us, staying just out of clear sight, but I could see parts of them as they moved. Elongated limbs, that unnatural pale skin, and when one of them turned slightly, I caught a glimpse of its face. It looked almost human. Almost. But the features were wrong. Eyes too large, mouth too wide, teeth too sharp. Like someone had taken a human face and stretched it, distorted it into something predatory. "They're not animals," Sarah whispered. "Oh God, they're not animals." The creatures began calling to each other. Not howls now, but something that sounded horribly like human speech. Words in a language I didn't recognize, but the tone was clearly communicative. They were coordinating. "Jake, we need to move," Dr. Torres said. "If they're pack hunters, staying in one spot makes us easy targets." But as soon as we started moving, they moved too, keeping pace with us, staying in the trees, maintaining their circle. And they were making more sounds now, clicks and whistles, and something that sounded like laughter. The sun was setting and our situation was getting desperate. These things, whatever they were, clearly had better night vision than we did. In the dark, we'd be helpless. That's when one of them got bold. It stepped out of the tree line about 50 feet away, and for the first time I got a clear look at one of the creatures. My mind tried to reject what I was seeing, but there it was, standing in plain sight. It had once been human. I was sure of it. The basic body structure was human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso. But everything was wrong, distorted, like the person had been taken apart and put back together by something that didn't quite understand human anatomy. Its skin was dead white, stretched tight over elongated bones. Its arms reached almost to its knees, ending in hands with fingers that were too long and tipped with black claws. Its legs were backward jointed like a bird's, giving it an inhuman gait, and its face. The face was the worst part. Recognizably human features, but stretched and warped. The mouth split almost from ear to ear, filled with needle-sharp teeth. The nose was just 2 slits in the middle of its face, and the eyes were huge, completely black, with no visible whites. But the most horrifying thing was that it was wearing clothes. Tattered, frozen clothing that looked like it had once been outdoor gear. This thing had been a person, someone like us, someone who'd come to the Alaska wilderness and encountered something that had changed them. "Don't shoot unless it attacks," I whispered. "We don't know how many there are." The creature tilted its head, studying us with those black eyes. Then it opened its mouth and spoke. "Help. Me." The words were barely recognizable, distorted by its malformed mouth, but definitely English. Sarah started crying. "Please, help. Me," it said again, taking a step closer. That's when I noticed the others. They'd moved closer while we were focused on the first one. At least a dozen of them, standing at the tree line, all wearing scraps of human clothing, all staring at us with those horrible black eyes. They were people, Dr. Torres whispered. All of them were people once. One of the rangers raised his weapon, but the creature held up a hand, a gesture so human it was heartbreaking. Don't shoot, please. Hungry, so hungry. More of them were speaking now, a chorus of distorted voices pleading for help, begging for food. But their teeth, their claws, the predatory way they moved, these weren't people anymore. They were something else, something that had kept just enough humanity to make them truly horrifying. "What happened to you?" Sarah called out, her voice breaking. The first creature's head snapped toward her. "Lost. In the cold. Found. The cave. Something. In the cave. Changed. Us. Made us. Better." "Better for what?" I asked, though I was afraid, die of the answer. The creature's mouth split into what might have been a smile. "Better for hunting." That's when they attacked. They moved faster than anything human-shaped should be able to move. The first one covered 50 feet in what seemed like a single bound, its claws reaching for Sarah's throat. Collins put 2 rounds center mass into it, but it barely slowed down. Chaos erupted. The creatures came from all directions at once, moving like spiders, scrambling over rocks and trees with impossible agility. Our gunshots echoed through the valley, but the bullets seemed to have minimal effect on them. Dr. Torres fired a flare directly into one creature's face. It screamed, a sound like tearing metal, and stumbled backward, clawing at its burned features. That seemed to hurt them more than bullets. "The flare gun!" I shouted. "They don't like fire!" I pulled out my emergency flares and started firing them at the creatures. The bright light and heat made them retreat, hissing and clicking angrily. But we only had so many flares. "We need to find shelter," Collins yelled over the gunfire. "Somewhere defensible." Through the chaos, I spotted something that might work. A small cave opening in the rocky outcrop about 200 yards away. If we could reach it, we'd have a choke point they couldn't surround. "Cave! 2 o'clock! Move!" We ran for our lives. The creatures pursued us, moving through the trees like pale demons, their inhuman voices calling to each other in that twisted language. But the flares kept them at a distance. We made it to the cave with seconds to spare. It was smaller than I'd hoped, barely enough room for the 5 of us. But the opening was narrow enough that they couldn't swarm us. The creatures gathered outside, pacing back and forth, testing our defenses. In the light of our emergency lanterns, they looked even more horrifying. I would see now that they weren't just wearing random clothing. Some of it was military gear, hiking equipment, winter survival gear. These had been outdoors enthusiasts, maybe people like us, who'd come to Alaska seeking adventure. "How many people have they taken?" Sarah whispered. As if in answer to her question, more of them emerged from the forest. Dozens of them, all showing signs of their former humanity. A creature wearing the tattered remains of a park ranger uniform. Another in what looked like tourist gear. One in military fatigues that might have been decades old. "The cave they mentioned," Dr. Torres said. "Something in a cave did this to them, changed them." The creatures were communicating again, making those clicking sounds, planning something. One of them, wearing the remains of what looked like pilot's gear, stepped forward. "You will join us," it said in that horrible, distorted voice. "The change is gift. No more. Cold. No more. Hunger. Only hunting." "What's in the cave?" I called out. "What changed you?" The pilot creature tilted its head. Ancient, waiting, sleeping, until we found it. Showed us truth. Humans weak, but can become strong. They're trying to convert us, Collins realized. Whatever's in that cave, it turns people into these things. The creatures began pressing closer to the cave mouth. Our ammunition was running low, and we were almost out of flares. In a few hours, we'd be defenseless. That's when I made the hardest decision of my life. There's another way out of this cave, I lied. A back entrance. If I can create a distraction, you three might be able to escape. Jake, no, Sarah said. We stick together. Someone needs to warn people about this place, about these things. If we all die here, more people will come looking for us and end up the same way. I handed Collins my GPS unit and emergency beacon. Get to high ground and call for extraction. Make sure they send armed personnel, not search and rescue. Before anyone could stop me, I grabbed the remaining flares and charged out of the cave. The creatures swarmed toward me immediately, but I had a few seconds head start. I ran toward the forest, firing flares in all directions, shouting and making as much noise as possible. Behind me, I heard my clients escaping through the cave. The creatures caught me about a quarter mile into the forest. The last thing I remember clearly was those black eyes staring down at me and something being pressed against my face, something that smelled like sulfur and decay. When I woke up, I was different. The cold didn't bother me anymore. My vision was sharper, especially in the dark. My hearing had improved dramatically. I could pick up sounds from miles away. And I was hungry. So incredibly hungry, but not for normal food. I could feel the changes happening to my body. My bones were lengthening, my skin turning pale and tough. My fingernails were growing into claws and my teeth were getting sharper. But the worst part was that I could still think. I was still me, Jake Morrison, wilderness guide. I just had new appetites. The other creatures welcomed me. They showed me the cave, deep in a valley that doesn't appear on any map. Inside was something ancient and alien, something that had been sleeping in the permafrost for thousands of years until climate change had thawed it out. It whispered to us in languages older than human speech, promising strength and immortality in exchange for service. And I said yes. God help me, I said yes. That was 3 months ago. My clients made it out. Barely. The rescue team found them half frozen at the extraction point, babbling about monsters in the wilderness. Their story was dismissed as hypothermia-induced hallucinations. But I know better, because I'm still out here, in the deep wilderness, watching and waiting. The thing in the cave is waking up more each day. And it needs more servants, more hunters, more people like me who can pass for human long enough to lure others into the wilderness. So if you're planning a winter adventure in Alaska, if you're thinking about testing yourself against the wilderness, let me give you some advice. Stay on the marked trails. Don't venture into areas that feel too quiet. And if you see symbols carved into trees, if you find tracks that look almost human but not quite right, if you hear voices in the wilderness calling for help, run. Because some of us who got lost in Alaska are still out here, and we're not people anymore. We're something else, something hungry, something that remembers just enough humanity to be the perfect bait for the next group of adventurers. The wilderness has always been dangerous, but now it's actively hunting, and it's always hungry for more. My name is Mike Petrov, and I've been running heavy equipment for 15 years. Started right out of high school with a small crew in Anchorage, learned to operate excavators, bulldozers, and road graders. I've worked through brutal Alaska winters, cleared avalanche debris, and built roads through mountains that didn't want roads. I thought I'd seen everything this job could throw at me. But what happened last October, 60 miles north of Fairbanks, showed me there are things buried in this frozen ground that should stay buried forever. I was part of a state highway expansion project, widening Route 2 to handle more truck traffic from the oil fields. Good pay, steady work, and my crew chief Randy Martinez had handpicked me for the job. We were using my Caterpillar 320 excavator to dig foundation trenches for the new roadbed. It's precise work. Dig too shallow and the road won't hold through the freeze-thaw cycle. Dig too deep and you're wasting time and taxpayer money. The job site was about as remote as it gets, nothing but spruce forest and frozen tundra stretching to the horizon. Cell phone coverage was spotty at best. Our base camp was 3 trailer units, one for the office, one for equipment storage, and one that served as our break room and first aid station. The nearest town was 40 miles south, just a truck stop and a few houses. We had a CB radio for emergencies and a satellite phone that worked when the weather cooperated. My excavator was running perfect that morning. The 320 is a 22-ton machine with a reach of nearly 30 feet, and I'd maintained her myself for the past 3 years. Fresh hydraulic fluid, new tracks, engine purring like it should. The ground was harder than usual. We'd had an early cold snap that froze the topsoil solid, but nothing the machine couldn't handle. Randy had marked out the section I needed to dig. Standard. Procedure: remove the topsoil, grade down 18 inches, compact the base, then the road crew would come in with gravel and asphalt. I'd done this exact same work on dozens of projects across Alaska. Should have been routine. I started digging around 8 in the morning. The first few passes went normal. Frozen dirt, some rocks, the usual tree roots. But about 2 hours in, when I was down maybe 4 feet, the bucket hit something that didn't feel right. Not a rock. Rocks crack and break when you hit them with 6 tons of steel. This felt solid, artificial, like concrete. I backed up the excavator and took a closer look at what I'd exposed. It was definitely concrete, but old concrete, the kind they used in the 50s, rougher than what we use now. And there was something else. Markings scratched into the surface. Letters, but not English letters. They looked Russian. Randy came over when I waved him down. He took one look and got on the CB to call our project supervisor, Dave Hutchinson. Dave drove out from his office in Fairbanks that same afternoon, took pictures, made some phone calls. The next morning, we had archaeologists on site. Dr. Sarah Chen was the lead archaeologist. She explained that we'd found what looked like a Cold War-era research facility. The markings were definitely Cyrillic, Russian alphabet. She said it wasn't unusual to find old military installations in Alaska from the 50s and 60s, when both the Americans and Soviets were building secret facilities up here. The structure was massive. As we carefully excavated around it, we realized it was a bunker about the size of a football field, buried under 8 feet of soil and vegetation. The entrance was on the south side, a heavy steel door sealed with multiple layers of concrete. There were ventilation shafts that had been filled in with cement and what looked like electrical conduits that had been cut and capped. Dr. Chen brought in a Geiger counter to check for radiation. The readings were normal. Whatever they'd been doing down there, it wasn't nuclear. She got permission from the state to breach the entrance and conduct a survey before we continued construction. It took my excavator most of a day to carefully chip away the concrete sealing the entrance. The steel door underneath was corroded but intact, secured with a locking mechanism that had seized solid. We used a cutting torch to get through it. The smell hit us first when we opened that door. Not decay or death, something else. Something animal, but wrong. The air was stale and cold, but underneath was this smell like wet fur and something else I couldn't identify. Dr. Chen went in first with a flashlight and portable air quality monitor. I followed with Randy and 2 other crew members, all of us wearing hard hats and carrying emergency radios. The bunker had electric lights, but the power had been cut decades ago. The first room was clearly an office area. Desks, filing cabinets, all the furniture covered in thick dust. Russian documents scattered around, most of them too deteriorated to read. Dr. Chen photographed everything before we moved deeper into the facility. That's when we found the laboratories. 3 rooms lined with what could only be described as cells. But these weren't built for people. The steel bars were spaced too wide for humans, and the cells were too large. Each one was about 10 feet by 12 feet with concrete floors and drainage systems. The steel had been bent and twisted outward, like something incredibly strong had forced its way out from the inside. In the 3rd lab, we found the journals. Dr. Chen could read some Russian, enough to translate the basics. The documents mentioned something called Project Snow Beast and described experiments combining human DNA with what they called local Arctic specimens. There were medical charts showing injection schedules, behavioral observations, and physical measurements that didn't make sense for ours, any known animal. One page that Dr. Chen translated made my blood run cold. It was dated March 15, 1956, and described Subject 7 as displaying extreme aggression and unusual growth rates. The entry ended with a note that Subject 7 had breached containment and that emergency protocols were being implemented. The deepest part of the bunker held the answer to what those emergency protocols were. At the back of the complex, we found a circular chamber with a hole in the center. The hole was about 8 feet across and had ladder rungs hammered into the concrete sides, leading down into darkness. Randy lowered a rope and flashlight down as far as it would go, about 40 feet, but couldn't see the bottom. I volunteered to go down and take a look. I'd done confined space work before, and my crew needed to know what we were dealing with before the state decided how to proceed with the construction project. The descent was straightforward. The ladder rungs were solid and spaced evenly. But about 30 feet down, the concrete walls gave way to natural rock, cave walls, and these walls were covered in scratches. Not small scratches like you'd get from mining tools or normal excavation. Deep gouges in the stone, some of them 6 inches long and carved nearly an inch into the solid rock. They covered every surface I could see, like something with massive claws had been scraping at the walls for years. My flashlight beam reached the bottom at 40 feet. The pit opened into a network of natural caves that extended beyond my light. The floor was littered with bones. Animal bones mostly, but they were cracked and splintered like they'd been chewed. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Deep, slow breathing, echoing from somewhere in the cave system beyond my flashlight beam. Not human breathing. Too deep, too slow. Like a large animal sleeping. I climbed back up that ladder, faster than I'd ever climbed anything in my life. "We need to leave," I told my crew. "Right now." Randy started to argue, but something in my voice stopped him. Dr. Chen wanted to set up recording equipment and document the cave system, but I was already heading for the surface. As we gathered our equipment and prepared to seal the bunker back up, we heard sounds coming from below. Movement in the underground chambers, something large shifting around down there. We worked fast, using my excavator to push concrete and steel back over the entrance. I told Dave Hutchinson it was unstable and recommended the area be marked as unsuitable for construction. The official report listed geological instability as the reason for abandoning that section of the highway project. That night, back at our hotel in Fairbanks, I couldn't stop thinking about those scratches on the cave walls. I got on the hotel's Wi-Fi and started researching Soviet Arctic experiments. What I found kept me awake for the next 3 nights. Project Snowbeast was real. Declassified documents from 1995 described a joint Soviet research program from 1953 to 1956, aimed at creating genetically enhanced soldiers for Arctic warfare. They'd been combining human DNA with genetic material from local predators. Wolves, bears, and something they called unidentified Arctic specimens. The program was shut down in March 1956 after what the documents called a containment failure resulting in casualties. The facility was sealed, and all records were classified for 40 years. But here's what made me quit my job and move to Arizona the next month. According to the declassified files, they never actually killed whatever they created. The emergency protocol was containment, not elimination. They just sealed it up and left it down there for 70 years. Construction on that section of Route 2 was permanently halted due to environmental concerns. The area was fenced off and marked as protected wildlife habitat. But I know the real reason they stopped the project. Some things are buried for a reason, and some things, once they're disturbed, don't go back to sleep. I still have nightmares about that breathing sound echoing up from the darkness. Sometimes I wake up wondering if we really sealed that bunker tight enough, or if something that's been waiting underground for 70 years might finally decide it's time to see what the world looks like now. I don't run heavy equipment anymore. These days I work construction in Phoenix, building houses in subdivisions where the biggest thing you'll find underground is a septic tank. But every time I fire up an excavator, Every time that bucket bites into the earth, I remember that sound. And I remember that somewhere in Alaska, there's a concrete bunker with something still breathing in the darkness below. My name is Sarah Kim, and I've been working as a waitress for 6 years now. I started right after high school when I needed money for college. What was supposed to be a temporary job turned into my life when my parents died in a car crash and left me with bills I couldn't pay. I've worked at 3 different restaurants, handled drunk customers, food fights, and people who tried to leave without paying. I thought I'd seen everything the late-night crowd could throw at me. But what happened last Tuesday at 3 a.m. at Mel's Diner changed everything I thought I knew about serving customers. Some things that walk through that door aren't human at all. Mel's Diner sits on the edge of Juneau, right where the highway splits toward the fishing docks and the logging roads. It's the kind of place where truckers stop for coffee at 2 a.m. and fishermen grab breakfast before heading out to sea. The building is old, probably from the 1960s, with red vinyl booths that have been patched with duct tape more times than I can count. The floor tiles are cracked, and the fluorescent lights flicker if you hit them just right. But it stays open 24 hours, and the pay is decent when you add up the tips. I work the midnight to 8 a.m. shift because nobody else wants it. It's usually pretty quiet after 2 a.m. Maybe a trucker stopping for coffee and pie, or sometimes the local police officer making his rounds. The kitchen has a pass-through window where I can see Jimmy, our night cook, working his grill. There's an old cash register that makes this loud ding every time you open it, and a coffee pot that's been brewing the same style of coffee since I started working here. The security camera system is ancient, just 2 cameras, one pointing at the front door and one at the register. They record to some old VCR system that Mel never bothered to upgrade. The bathroom is down a narrow hallway toward the back, and there's a small office behind the kitchen where we keep the safe and do paperwork. That Tuesday started like any other night. I'd served coffee to a long-haul trucker around midnight, and a couple of fishermen grabbed some food around 1 a.m. before heading out. By 2:30, the place was empty, except for me and Jimmy. I was wiping down tables and refilling the napkin holders when I heard the front door chime. That little bell above the door has a specific sound, kind of tired and rusty, but it still worked. I looked up and saw a man standing in the doorway. He was wearing hunting gear, camouflage jacket, heavy boots, and dark pants. Looked like he'd been in the woods for days. His face was covered in scratches, like he'd been pushing through thick brush, and his clothes were caked with mud. Not unusual for Alaska, especially during hunting season. I see guys like this all the time. "Good morning," I called out, grabbing a menu from behind the counter. "Sit anywhere you'd like." He didn't say anything at first, just stood there looking around the diner like he was studying every detail. His movements were slow and careful, like he was thinking about each step. He finally walked over to the corner booth, the one furthest from the door and the windows. Smart choice if you wanted privacy. I walked over with a menu and a glass of water. "Coffee to start?" "Black coffee," he said. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. "And I want raw hamburger meat." I blinked. "Raw hamburger meat?" "Yes, just the meat. Raw." I'd heard strange requests before, but nothing quite like this. "Sir, we don't really serve raw meat. Health codes and all that. But I can get you a burger cooked rare if you want." His eyes locked onto mine. One was brown, the other was blue. I'd never seen eyes like that before. Not just different colors, but they seemed to look right through. It's me. "I'll pay extra for the raw meat." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl, but I needed the tips. "Let me check with the cook. I'll get your coffee first." I went back to pour his coffee, trying to shake off the weird feeling. Jimmy was flipping burgers for the morning prep when I told him about the request. "Raw meat?" Jimmy scratched his head. "That's nasty, but if he pays extra, I guess I can put some ground beef on a plate. Not like we're gonna get shut down for one weirdo." When I brought the coffee back, the man was sitting perfectly still, staring at the wall. Not looking at his phone, not fidgeting, just staring. I set the cup down and noticed his hands. They had fresh cuts across the knuckles, but there was no blood. The cuts looked like they should be bleeding, but they were completely dry. "Jimmy's going to make you a plate of the ground beef," I said. "Might take a few minutes." "Good." That's all he said. Just good. I went back to my cleaning, but I kept glancing over at him. He hadn't touched the coffee yet, just sat there with his hands folded on the table. Those cuts on his hands bothered me. How do you get fresh cuts that don't bleed? When Jimmy rang the bell, I picked up the plate. It was just raw ground beef, maybe a quarter pound, sitting on one of our regular plates. It looked gross, but the customer is always right, I guess. I set it down in front of him. "Here you go. That'll be $8 with the coffee." Instead of using the fork I brought, he started picking up pieces of the raw meat with his fingers, just grabbing chunks and eating them while staring directly at me. He never blinked, not once, just chewed the raw beef and stared at me with those mismatched eyes. I tried to stay busy, but it was hard to ignore. The way he ate was wrong somehow, too focused, too intense, and he kept staring at me like I was the most interesting thing in the world. "You're Sarah Kim," he said suddenly. I froze. I hadn't told him my name. My name tag was turned around from when I'd been cleaning, so he couldn't have read it. How do you know my name?" "You live on Spruce Street, apartment 4B. My blood went cold. That was my address. I'd never seen this man before in my life. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" His voice changed when he answered. It got higher, softer, almost like a woman's voice. "You have a sister. Had a sister." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. "My sister Emily died 3 years ago in a car accident. We don't talk about it. Ever. I think you have me confused with someone else. Emily was driving to see you when it happened. She was bringing you birthday cake, chocolate cake with vanilla frosting, your favorite." I couldn't breathe. Nobody knew about the cake. Emily had called me that morning to tell me she was coming over, but she never mentioned what she was bringing. The police never said anything about a cake. I only found out because I went to her apartment the next day and saw the receipt from the bakery on her counter. "Who are you?" My voice was shaking. He smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide, and his teeth looked wrong, too sharp. "She was crying when the truck hit her car, crying because she was going to be late for your birthday." "Stop." I backed away from the table. "Just stop." But he kept going. The impact threw her through the windshield. She was still alive for a few minutes after. She kept saying your name. Those details were never in the newspaper. The police report said she died on impact. But I knew he was telling the truth because Emily's friend told me later that Emily had called her right before the accident, crying about being late. I looked at him again, really looked at him. His hair was black when he walked in, but now it looked brown. His face seemed different too, like the features had shifted somehow. Younger, more familiar. "I need to check on something in the kitchen," I said, backing toward the parents. "Ass-through window." "Sarah!" The voice was definitely higher now, almost like, no, it couldn't be. I ran to the back office and grabbed the phone to call 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "There's someone at my work who's threatening me. He knows things about me that he shouldn't know, personal things about my dead sister." "What's your location?" "Mel's Diner on Highway 7. I'm the only waitress here. We'll send an officer. Stay on the line with me." I held the phone and waited, watching the dining room through the pass-through window. The man was still sitting there, but something was wrong. He looked smaller now, and his hair was definitely different, longer, lighter. "Ma'am, are you still there?" "Yes, but something's wrong. He looks different now." "Different how?" I squinted through the window. The person in the booth had the same hunting clothes, but the body looked wrong, smaller, more feminine. I think it's a woman now." "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. The officer's about 5 minutes away." I kept watching and my heart stopped. The person turned to look toward the kitchen and I saw the profile. The nose, the shape of the face, the way she held her head. It looked exactly like Emily. "Oh, God," I whispered. "Ma'am?" "It's my sister. The person out there looks like my dead sister." I hung up the phone and crept back to the pass-through window. The person in the booth was definitely smaller now, definitely feminine. She had Emily's brown hair, Emily's build, Emily's way of sitting with her shoulders hunched slightly forward. But she was still wearing the muddy hunting clothes. And when she turned to look at me, she still had those mismatched eyes. One brown, one blue. "Sarah," she called out in Emily's voice, "come sit with me." I couldn't move. It was Emily's voice, but wrong somehow, like someone imitating her but not getting it quite right. "I brought your cake," she said, and there was a white bakery box on the table that hadn't been there before. "Chocolate with vanilla frosting, just like you wanted." Jimmy came out of the kitchen. "Hey, Sarah, who's that lady? And where'd the guy go?" "What guy?" I asked, even though I knew what he was going to say. "The guy with the raw meat. Where'd he go? And who's the woman?" Jimmy couldn't see what I was seeing. To him, it probably just looked like a different customer had come in. But I knew it was the same thing. The same thing that had been sitting there eating raw meat and telling me about Emily's accident. The front door chimed and Officer Martinez walked in. He's been coming to Mel's for coffee during his night shift for 2 years. Good guy, always tips well. "Sarah, you called about someone threatening you?" I pointed to the corner booth. "That woman, she knows things about my family that she shouldn't know." Officer Martinez looked over at the booth. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Martinez. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" The woman, the thing that looked like Emily, turned toward him and smiled. But when she opened her mouth, no sound came out. She just opened and closed her mouth like she was trying to speak but couldn't make the right sounds. "Ma'am?" Officer Martinez stepped closer. "Are you all right?" That's when she stood up. She was Emily's height, Emily's build, wearing Emily's face. But the movements were wrong. Too fluid, too smooth, like she was floating instead of walking. She walked toward the bathroom without saying anything. Officer Martinez followed her, but I stayed back. Something was very wrong. "Ma'am, I need to speak with you," Officer Martinez called out. I heard the bathroom door close. Then silence. Officer Martinez knocked on the bathroom door. "Ma'am? Police? I need you to come out and talk to me." No answer. He tried the handle. The door was locked from the inside. "Ma'am, if you don't open this door, I'm going to have to force it open." Still no answer. Officer Martinez put his shoulder to the door and pushed. The cheap bathroom lock broke easily, and the door swung open. The bathroom was empty. "Where'd she go?" he asked me. I walked over and looked inside. The bathroom window was open, but it was 12 feet off the ground outside. No ladder, no way to climb down safely. And the window was small, maybe 2 feet by 1 foot. Even if someone could fit through it, the drop would break their legs. "Check the window," Officer Martinez said. I looked out. The parking lot was empty except for my car, Jimmy's truck, and the police cruiser. No woman in hunting gear anywhere. "This doesn't make sense," Officer Martinez muttered. "People don't just disappear." That's when I noticed the coffee cup on the table where the woman had been sitting. The rim was covered in bite marks. Not human bite marks. They were too sharp, too deep, like an animal had been chewing on it. "Officer Martinez, look at this." He examined the cup. "What the hell? Looks like a dog got hold of it." I looked around the booth area and saw muddy footprints leading from the corner booth to the bathroom. But halfway down the hallway, they just stopped. No more prints, no wet spots, nothing. The footprints just ended in the middle of the floor. "This is impossible," Officer Martinez said. "Footprints don't just disappear." That's when Jimmy called out from behind the counter. "Hey, you guys need to see this." He was looking at the security monitor. The old VCR system records everything on a loop so we could see what had happened over the past hour. "Look at this," Jimmy said, rewinding the tape. On the screen, I could see myself serving coffee to someone in the corner booth. But the person on camera wasn't the man in hunting gear or the woman who looked like Emily. It was Emily, my actual sister, wearing the same clothes she died in 3 years ago. The same blue sweater, the same jeans, even the same earrings. "That's impossible," I whispered. Officer Martinez stared at the screen. "Ma'am, who is that person?" "That's my sister, but she's been dead for 3 years." We watched the tape in silence, as the Emily on camera ate raw meat with her fingers and stared directly at me. We watched her stand up and walk to the bathroom. We watched her disappear. "I need to make some calls," Officer Martinez said quietly. This is beyond my experience. I never worked another night shift after that. Hell, I never worked alone again, period. I transferred to day shifts at a different restaurant across town. But sometimes, late at night, I still get calls on my cell phone from Emily's old number. Just heavy breathing, and then a voice that sounds almost like hers saying, "I brought your cake, Sarah. Where are you?" I changed my number 3 times, but the calls keep coming. I don't work in restaurants anymore. I got a job at a grocery store where there are always other people around, where the lights are bright, and where nothing can sneak up on you in a corner booth. But I still think about that night, about the thing that wore my sister's face and ate raw meat like a wild animal. The scariest part isn't that something supernatural visited Mel's diner that night. The scariest part is that I think it was Emily. I think my sister came back, but something went wrong. Something changed her into something that wasn't quite human anymore. And I think she's still out there, still trying to bring me that birthday cake, still trying to make up for being late that night she died. If you work late nights serving food to strangers, pay attention to your customers. Really pay attention. Because sometimes the person sitting in that corner booth ordering strange food and staring at you with mismatched eyes might be someone you used to love, someone who loved you enough to come back from the dead. But they might not be human anymore.